talk about sort of, when you hear about any atheist or atheism, this kind of stuff, you always hear about like the angry atheist. That's a stereotype. It's a very, very angry, upset atheist. So I want to ask you that same question on a scale of like 1 to Amitabh Bachchan in a temple going, "Aaj khush to bahut ho gaye tum." How angry were you? Did you have an angry journey? Did you not have that sense of anger? What happened with you?
So first of all, I want to thank all three of them for agreeing to do this. I would not have done it. In fact, when I reached
I was under duress.
Yeah, it was actually. I remember messaging Anand, "हाँ मैं तेरे को option नहीं दे रहा हूँ, तू आ रहा है." So I want to thank all three of them. But तुझे तो मैं बाद में प्यार से thank you special बोलूँगा.
तू है कौन?
So, as
Mike, Mike में बात करो.
हाँ, is this better? Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I think around the age of 20 to 22, when I had that experience of first a bunch of Christian missionaries trying to convert me to Christianity and save me. And then in the next 48 hours, I had a Muslim trying to convert me to Islam. Was the first time I became I was a very...
Who had the better pitch?
That's a tough one to answer, because एक बंदा मेरे को plane में convert कर रहा था.
अरे गलत जगह है.
और the other one was like, I was like, मेरे को jet lag था, so I was like, भाई, I need someone to talk to. So भाई, तो उसको लग रहा था कि वो मुझे convert कर रहा है, मुझे लग रहा था कि मेरे को company मिल रही है रात को with the Pakistani guy. But I think, yeah, so that was a time I was actually a very militant atheist. I would very openly say I was a very militant atheist. But for that 2-3 year period, I was very, very angry. Yeah, so there was a very angry phase. I think most people who, I don't know about Anand and Abhijit, I will not speak for them. Anand की शक्ल देख के नहीं लगता उसको कभी गुस्सा आता है.
So let me get this straight. You were given an option of 72 whores and you chose Abhijit.
देख भाई, जब वो ऑफर आया था अपने को मालूम नहीं था कि 72 हूरें मिलने वाली है. सीधी बात ये है. अगर मालूम होता तो एक्सेप्ट कर लेते.
They should have opened with that.
हाँ, वो बोला ही नहीं ना.
उधर से शुरू करना चाहिए.
उधर से शुरू नहीं किया. But yeah, so maybe 2-3 year period, I was your quintessential Dawkins. I would use the Dawkins God delusion meter, where 1 to 7 में Dawkins would place himself at 6.9. I would place myself at 6.99.
Right. And what about the others? Like, what were your experiences initially feeling those feelings that you were? Were you also similar, ki were very angry, sort of militant disbelief?
No, not really. I'll tell you why. You know, our tradition doesn't come from a place of absolute belief in your certainty. We come from the question why. Okay, I'm not too sure. And the Nasiriya Shukta, for example, so they'll say, oh, but the Nasiriya Shukta came later. It's the 10th book, so it comes, it's a later extrapolation into the thing or whatever. But they agreed to let it get extrapolated there, na? Which means that we came from a thing of, I don't know. Okay? I'm here to discover. I'm not here to proselytize, I'm here to discover. I went through several phases of this because, you know, the strange thing was my mom was very ritualist. She still is, and she's a very temple-going devout Hindu. My dad was a confirmed communist. ठीक है? नाम के वास्ते atheist थे. ठीक है? But घर में दुर्गा का मूर्ति होता था. All the pujas had to be done, and you're like, but Papa, तुम्ही तो atheist. Doesn't matter. We have to do this puja. All the pujas has to be done, and if it wasn't done, there was always Thamma, my grandmother, sitting there to give you. She used to take out her chappals and beat you real good. And even after she passed away, the rituals had to be maintained at home. So I grew up in a sort of environment where I had a mix and match of everything. Okay? The thing was, it was never shoved down my throat. You were allowed to find the path. Nobody had an issue. Neither my mother nor my father had an issue with me finding my own path and all of this. And you know, you come to your own equilibrium at some point of time. So I was able to kind of, in that sense, it came from the communist father's side, believe it or not, where I'm very ritualistically Hindu, that I believe agar ghar mein murti hai ya kuch hai, all the rituals have to be done and the pujas have to be said. But I don't believe in God. And I think that's what this book gets into, because, you know, unlike, say, a Western atheist where there's only one thing, there is no God, and they desperately need to, I mean, you know, a Western atheist is no different from a Jehovah's Witness trying to convert you. You know, I like what he had with Christians, I had with Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I don't know if you've ever had Jehovah's Witnesses come to you. They have extremely high quality publications, you know, and they're fantastic to change your mind about anything. They've got answers for everything. And I remember the first thing they came to my house in Santhome in Madras, they were like, "Are you happy with the state of the world?" Like, sure,
Great
things could be
question to
better.
start with.
Come, let's have a chat. And then I was looking, and, you know, I used to collect books. I used to be a big thief. I was a klepto. I used to go to people's houses and steal books. So what used to happen was, I saw the quality of these books and I wanted these free books. And I knew exactly where I stood. But I used to keep telling them, no, let's continue the conversation. And I got about 20, 30 books. You know, in those days, those books would have been worth about some 6,000-7,000 rupees, which in this day and age would be about some 50,000-60,000 rupees. Okay? I collected those books, so I was very happy with it. So for me, you know, this whole experience with this conversion thing was very profitable for me. So I support conversion completely.
First of all, I mean, I of course extend my thanks to you know, my protector, Lord and Savior, and Kushal and Abhi for inviting me here.
Maybe I should start a cult now. Yeah, I have one guy.
Yes,
Yeah.
1300 years later,
Exactly.
we won't have just 20 people,
Yeah,
2 million,
Exactly. Make some money along the way.
and no one will be allowed to criticize us.
Not me, at least. Yeah.
How many will you marry, though?
I can't answer that question. My wife is here.
सोच के जवाब देना.
Yes.
बाद में पूछना.
And thank you for this amazing crowd. I'm so sorry, most of you are standing and feels like a JNU Dharna crowd. Only the Duffleys are missing. Duffley lana bhul gaya, I think. But to jump straight to the question, first of all, I want to say that I want to qualify this, because now this increasing incidence is happening that my 1 hour or 2 hour long podcasts are clipped into 2-minute pieces, and you know, you can basically project whatever Anand is trying to say. So please don't do that. I think starting say, I think this is being telecast. करना है तो इसको गाली पड़े, इनको गाली
Yeah.
पड़े, मुझे नहीं. बहुत पड़ी है मुझे गालियाँ.
Make sure the author gets all of the abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. You know. So, but first of all, let me start by qualifying that yes, I am a Darwinian atheist, not that fraud leftist commie atheist, which I'll come to if we have time to explain their difference. But I am not speaking from any higher ground or higher pedestal, as is the perception that atheists are always looking down upon the believers. You know, that's the perception. Absolutely not. So please don't, whatever I say, I am also wrecked with doubt. But all my adult life, I've tried to reduce that amount of doubt as much as possible through the discoveries that others have done in science. But I firmly believe that a scientist cannot be a believer. Let me qualify that. A scientist who is doing science as a profession, of course, then it's fine. But if you truly believe in the philosophy of science, why you're doing it, then you have to go back to the scientific axioms now. And that is Hubble's Hubble law or redshift and Darwinian theory of evolution. And if we have time, we can. So the moment you read and believe in those two, especially the Darwinian theory, I don't think you can. So let me put it this way: before Darwin and Hubble, you could be excused for being an agnostic. That is, you doubt the existence of God. But I think after Darwin, especially because the Abrahamic version of God has created all life forms, has created Earth in 6 days and all that thing. So you can't believe that. But on the other hand, the inventor of the MRI believes that Earth was created in 6 days, you know. And so brilliant scientists are very strong believers. But this is just my personal view. Once you believe in Darwinian theory of evolution, once you believe what followed from there, 130 years of what biology has told us, I don't think as a scientist you could be a believer. What astonishes me is that I've come to the conclusion that I am so utterly, completely insignificant, just a bunch of cells, as wallowing in my insignificance as you could say an insect is or as an ant is. But I have come to that conclusion based on scientific discoveries and principles starting from Darwin, and then Stanley Miller's experiment, and then Jack Szostak's protocell, and then you had the sexual PCR of Stemmer. 5 or 6 landmark discoveries of science, not to forget genome sequencing, that showed the path of evolution is exactly the same as, for example, the housekeeping genes of E. coli is to humans. Our DNA is 99.1% identical to that of a chimpanzee, not similar, identical.
Don't you look at me when you said that?
You look like Rahul Gandhi's companion. He's like Sabu from Jupiter.
Very sharp.
Look at him, yeah. So what astonishes me is that people who were not scientists, but who thought about this, actually came to the same conclusion. And there were many Jain monks. The history is replete with Indians, who thought about these things, and more contemporary, if you want to talk about, Albert Camus, the insignificance, the absurdity, the comic nature, the tragedy of life, and the fact that we are so insignificant. Why are we giving ourselves significance? That significance is given through religion, through God. Every night I go to sleep thinking, oh my God, there's another day, more to go. What am I doing? Every one of us is a Sisyphus. But some of us are operating a crane to haul that boulder up the hill. That's the only difference, So, as Camus said, perhaps I think 1 million books would be written to get to that magical first sentence in any book. And his first sentence was, the only philosophical problem remaining currently is that of suicide. The fact of the matter is that if you were to combine those two together, you would see that why do we need God? Does E. coli believe in something? Does an ant believe in something? Why is it that we've created this whole world for us so separate from what other animal and living forms have? You look at, any animal, lion or something, the habitat is mostly the same. It's a jungle. Yes, things have changed, climate change or whatever you may call it, but the fact of the matter is that it's only us as animals who've created roads, cars, industrial revolutions, everything, books, printed. Why? I don't understand it. Because the moment you talk about how life was created and the moment you can reproduce it in lab, and people have done it through Stanley Miller, through Szostak's protocell, you have a doorway, you have a path into an altogether different set of axioms, which is that you didn't need God to create human beings in 6 days. Human beings have been created purely as a matter of chance, and whether we live or we die, absolutely no consequence, does not matter whatsoever. So when that realization strikes, what astonishes me is that people came to that conclusion without basing their thesis on science. And I have done so, science, not my own, but reading more. So that's to answer your question.